The voice of sharing Durian ASEAN.
Welcome to Durian ASEAN. Hi, I'm Arlene, your host today. And selamat pagi, salam sejahtera for our co-guest host today, Melissa Sasidaran.
Yes, that's right. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So you are a lawyer and a member of the Bar Council Constitutional Law Committee.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
I
a
am.
mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
And what you do exactly is the Bar Council Constitutional Law Committee?
Later on, I will be talking more about My Consti, which is, well, the long name is My Constitution, which is a campaign run by the Bar Council Constitutional Law Committee.
Okay. So later on, after our news commentary, we will have a blast from the grassroots where Melissa here will talk more about the constitutional institution and the separation of power. So moving on to our first thing today, which is a news headline called "Police Need Urgent Reforms," says Global Human Rights Watchdog, which was reported in the Malaysia Insider. It stated that urgent reforms are required for Malaysian police who have been implicated in numerous instances of killing, mistreatment in custody and excessive use of force. And it's being spoken by this New York-based Human Rights Watch, which everyone knows is infamous of overlooking human rights issue internationally. So this guy, Flip Robertson, who is the Human Rights Watch Deputy Asia Director, he said that steps need to be taken to bring Malaysian government practice into compliance with international legal standards. Melissa, I had an earlier conversation with you, and you told me you are dealing with a lot of cases involving police brutality.
Well, not police brutality per se, but I deal more with children who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. So when a child is charged or arrested, for example, I deal a lot with this kind of cases, and you can see one common theme across the board, and that is the police often do not take responsibilities for their actions, because when it comes to children, I think people take them for granted because they do not have their own voice. So the police often, in my experience at least, do not follow the proper procedures when it comes to from moment of arrest to the remand and the court procedures. They often do not follow it.
I see.
This leaves parents and or any relatives very, very lost at times, because their only way to find out more information of, for example, when their child is arrested, is through the police, yet they are not getting information.
In fact, it's being reported here, despite more than 4,000 complaints filed against the police between 2005 and 2012, only 325 cases were prosecuted in the court. That's very sad.
It is very sad, because the problem with the police is that when you make a complaint against another police officer, their process of inquiry or disciplinary procedure is internal. And that's why the Bar Council have always been advocating the IPCMC.
And what is that?
IPCMC is an Independent Police Complaints and Misconduct Commission. IPCMC. So what we hope to this commission can do is be an independent body where they can accept complaints against the police force and independently decide on the disciplinary actions or whatever actions they may take to address the problem.
And the Human Rights Watch also stated exactly the same thing that you said. Civilian complaints of police misconduct and abuse are not probed by an independent body. They are instead investigated by their own colleagues, and
Yes.
there's no check and balance.
There is no check and balance. You can't be you will never get anything when you are the jury, judge, and executioner.
Yeah. So this is a sad case, So, and also it stated that there are very few details publicly available regarding on how the CID investigates civilian complaints about the police.
Yes. normally when, for example, when you lodge a police report against anyone, be it the police or anything, there is actually a mechanism for you to find out more about the status of the investigations. But I suppose it's not something that most people know. People think that now that I've lodged a police report, I will just wait for the police to get back to me. But that often does not happen. So that is what we need.
Yeah, and in a similar news by MSN News, it stated that rights group raps pattern of police abuse in Malaysia. It reported the exactly same news on the Human Rights Watch, and the Human Rights Watch provided a 102-page report titled "No Answers, No Apology," that a culture of impunity permits the National Police Force. He stated that Malaysian police force are corrupt, brutal, and incompetent. I think you would agree on that.
Well, I would say that their comment is fair because of the number of police brutality and deaths in custody in our country. Like, for example, we are only 3 months into 2014, and yet there has been 3 deaths already.
Oh.
And so, you know, we when family members probe as to what happened during that, because according to family members, these people often come into the police stations healthy, with no health problems at all, but they do not know what happened in there. That overnight something happens, and next thing you know, their family member is no longer with them. And obviously, because these deaths occurred in the police custody, I suppose there is a degree of secrecy when it comes to their procedures and all that. So one thing that lawyers and human rights activists have been harping on is an SOP of how they conduct in their investigations, how they run their lockups, because we have lockup rules and all that, but to what extent is it followed? These details are not provided to the public.
Wow. And it stated there, the police statistic indicates that officers that kill indicates that 400 people were killed by police officers during between 2000 and 2012, and half of them are Indonesians. It seems like it seems like Indonesians and those who are migrant workers, either legally or illegally, they are being the target of these police forces.
Well, perhaps it's because there is no one that is watching out for these people. Some of them come in without proper documentation, so it is hard to keep a record of who these people are. So there is no one watching out for them. If something happens, no one knows.
What about within the government bodies? Is there anyone that checks on the police themselves, their code of conduct?
Yes, the police internally have their own procedures, but we do not know of their SOP.
I see. We do not know. That means none of the public, not even the NGO.
No, none of us know.
None of the people from the lawyers
No, none.
group.
No, we have been demanding so many times, but we have not received anything.
Yeah, and they have this shoot first policy. It's stated here, like for example, this one case, his name is Dinesh Dharmasena, 26 years old, a Malaysian ethnic Indian who died after being shot in the right arm and back of the head in August 2012, according to a post-mortem.
There are so many similar cases, like for example, the teenager Aminul Rashid, also something similar. Well, the reason why people say there is a shoot first policy is because this kind of deaths happened so spontaneously. If you say that you are you suspect these certain individuals of being suspects or might be able to assist in your investigations of any crime at all, then what you should have done is, I'm sure you have your proper procedures of apprehending them. But what we see is a very irresponsible manner of cornering them, and these shots are released in a very irresponsible manner.
And it is actually being propagated by Home Ministry Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, who oversee the police force. He actually said that police should do the shoot first thingy when confronted with criminal suspects.
That is a very irresponsible statement, I must say, because we must remember that they are firstly suspects. And the Constitution even provides that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So you cannot be the judge, jury, and executioner all by yourself. If you suspect that a person is suspected of a crime, investigate him, charge him in court, and let the court decide, because that is their duty, not yours.
Yeah, I mean, the police brutality thingy is not just a Malaysian thing. It seems like, as being reported in Jakarta Globe, Aceh is also outraged over brutal shooting, and this involved the police forces as well.
That's just sad.
So, the problem with Aceh right now is more on a shooting that involved a competition between the local political parties. I think their problems are a bit more different, and it is stated that it is stated that a rivalry between the political parties has invoked somehow some sort of like
Competition.
competition and killing between each other, and seems like also the law enforcement officers are not really doing their job well. That's why the Aceh's clerics and publics are having an outreach over this matter.
We sometimes see violence involving two rival political parties. You know, it's especially prevalent during the general elections, where so many polling agents actually reported these sightings of violence between rival political parties. And it shouldn't have happened at all. It is actually an election offence. And at the end of the day, we must remember to move forward as a democratic country. And what more in an elections, for example, leave all this violence and emotions behind.
Yeah, and the reason why people were outcrying the Aceh issue is because the shooting left 3 people dead, including an 18-month-old child. This is such a sad state. I mean, what is the value of human being if you can easily kill a person, even a baby, just like that?
Exactly, and I think they also appear to have a problem with weapon control.
Yeah, there's another issue to talk about as well. Moving on to the Irrawaddy, this is a news in Myanmar. Stated that draft law on religious conversion to be finished by June, said by its deputy minister. So Myanmar is, interestingly, I've been observing Myanmar. They are moving towards Malaysia in a lot of ways. Like, for example, a couple of days ago, we reported about Myanmar, working on trying to ban interfaith marriages. And in Malaysia, we do not have interfaith marriages.
Or else you and I wouldn't exist.
Yeah. So in this case, in the next couple of months, a government commission will finish drafting 2 bills to restrict religious conversion and to enact population control measures, said by the Deputy Minister for Religious Affairs. They are going to the extreme.
Yeah, they are. Whatever it is, it must go back to the Constitution. I'm quite sure that constitutions all over the world have freedom of religion.
Yeah.
So, to restrict religious conversion it would be against that.
Yeah, I think their last constitution were drafted in 2008 during the military regime. So there were talks, at least on the grassroots that I know, pushing forward towards drafting a new constitution since they are transiting towards democracy.
Yes, perhaps if the constitution is not working for them, if there are too many things that are not right with the constitution, then perhaps it would be a good idea to start from scratch.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, I think it is very important to bear in mind that if they want any sort of drafting, it should be done with consultation with all stakeholders involved.
I think this is a culture prevalent in most Southeast Asian countries. Everything is top down.
Yes,
I don't think public consultation is a popular word in most of the Southeast Asian countries. So in this case, activists and some religious leaders have opposed the bill. They said that it could inflame religious tension, which I totally agree. I think, especially in the Malaysian context, we also have similar bills where, especially Muslim, they are not allowed to convert to another religion. They have to stay within their own original religion.
Well, as far as I know, in Sharia law, conversion out of Islam is it's not to say impossible, but almost impossible.
Almost
It is
impossible.
difficult. It is difficult, except for certain states, like for example, Negeri Sembilan. But it's not something they want to be spread around. But it is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Because for Muslims, you have Sharia law that is governing you, and the federal constitutions allow certain so-called discrimination, for want of a better word, in that sense.
And in fact, in the case of Myanmar, the reason why they are having this bill is because they want to protect race and religion.
The purity of
The
the
purity
purity of their races.
And it is being supported by their nationalist Buddhist monks. I think if you bring it back to Malaysia, you will have this exact same thing, as that the Buddhist monk will be like nationalist Islamist.
Yes, yes. It's something that most Southeast Asian countries at least have to really sit down and think how they want to move forward from all this.
Yeah, that's true. So, moving forward, enough about religious conversion. Now we move on to nature. So, in Cambodia daily, 2 killed and 73 houses destroyed by lightning in northwest. And as you may know, lightning is a big issue in Cambodia because it has one of the highest rate in the world of lightning death. According to the Disaster Management Committee, the rate is 7.8 deaths per million people.
Wow.
That's a lot, right?
That is a lot.
Yeah, and it stated that last year, 103 people were killed by lightning, and majority of them are in the rural areas, where farmers often work in the open without shelter. I don't know what to say about this, but I think when it comes to disaster and lightning and all that, the government need to do something, and
We need to know how long this has been happening, and if it has been happening for quite some time, why isn't there a proper measure to prevent it?
Yeah,
Could it be the ecological structure of the place? I don't know. I'm not an expert in environmental areas.
I'm not an expert as
but
well.
I think questions need to be asked. What exactly is the relevant departments doing about it?
Yeah, I think the problem is about the way that the government approach how they want to tackle the issue. And I think it's not just about trying to say that it's just 1 or 2 people were killed during lighting. They have to
One
realize
death is one too many.
that, they have to realize that this can be a huge problem, as in like 73 houses destroyed as well. So it involved properties as well. In Singapore, reported in today's online, Dr. Balakrishna, frustrated over the unwillingness of countries to share land use concession map, is a key sticking point. That's what that was being reported in its headlines. So what is stated that as neighbouring country continue to rebuff the republics, as in Singapore Republic's push to kick off the haze monitoring system that it has invested considerable time and money in, the Environment and Water Resources Minister Vivian Balakrishnan yesterday expressed his frustration following another meeting with his counterparts on the haze problem that failed to yield any significant breakthrough on the front. And this is about the haze, and what the Balakrishnan is sort of frustrated about is the unwillingness of countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia to share the land use and concession map needed for the monitoring system to work.
Well, I personally think, there are many reasons why the haze cannot be tackled properly until today. I remember when I was a little girl, I think it was I can't remember, 97, 98, when the haze was really bad. Until today, we see it year in, year out, but we do not see a proper solution to tackle this.
I think the biggest haze problem back then was back in 1997, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It was really bad. We couldn't go to school. Schools were closed. And even with mask on, it was hard to breathe outside. I mean, this is not a problem that happened, just recently. It's been, over a decade. And despite neighboring countries being in talks and meetings to solve this, we have yet to see a sustainable long-term effort.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a Malaysian issue or a Singapore issue. It's a transnational issue.
Yes, it is.
And I think collaboration and cooperation is definitely the key area. I mean, they can collaborate very well in the MH370 missing plane, but when it comes to environmental issue, they should put even more concern on it.
Exactly. Perhaps it's also the lack of political will.
Yeah, and also in this case is the lack of transparency among the government. A lot of the burnings happen, illegal burning activities, and this involve companies, and these companies might belong to the countries involved itself. Yeah. So in the case of haze, I think the government or the governments of each country need to step up itself. Yeah. So, in the case of Philippines, reported in Manila Bulletin, titled "Fear from Philippine Troops Facing China Enemy." So, in this case, it is a long, sort of like claims by China on the South China Sea. So, it is being reported several times before this, where China is claiming some of the land in the South China Sea, and for this, 9 hungry Marines guarding the Philippines' Donia outpost aboard a rusted World War II vessel has just one up after China vessel blocked fresh supply from reaching them. So when it comes to this, I would say China wants to control Southeast Asia. I don't know. It feels a bit dodgy because they seem to have a huge interest on the South China Sea. So in this report, it stated that in a remarkable act of military doggedness, the Philippines has since 1999 stationed a tiny number of Marines on a former U.S. naval boat that was deliberately grounded on a group of islets and reef called Second Thomas Shoal. So the 100-meter or 328-foot BRP Sierra Madre, built during the World War II, then acquired by the Philippines in the 1970s, is now a little more than a rusted hulk and incapable of sailing, but it has thwarted Chinese effort to occupy all the areas, which is believed to contain huge deposit of oil and gas. So we can see here there's a geopolitical interest between countries here, especially China. And they also reported that the Philippines grounded the boat at a tiny shoal in response to China's military occupying Mischief Reef about 40 miles away in 1995. Both are within the Philippines' internationally recognized exclusive economic zone and roughly 1,100 kilometers from the nearest major Chinese landmass.
Well, when it comes to international claims like this, there are actually international mechanisms to solve this issue. And I think, when there is a proper procedure laid out for you to resolve these territorial issues, then we should take this opportunity and use that mechanism to solve it. Because at the end of the day, we are all neighbors, and things like this just do not bode well for the relationship between countries as well as in the economic sense.
Yeah, I mean, it might even trigger major military conflict because each of the countries say that, oh, this is our land, and they mean this is our sea, and other countries will say this is our sea as well. But I think it's a way of thinking beyond just geopolitical interests. Although oil and gas is, have sort of huge deposit within that South China Sea, it's also important to see that, in the new age of globalization, sharing is the key word. And when it comes to China, they reacted with fury to the defeat, with the mood in Beijing soaring further when the Philippines also appealed on the weekend to the United Nations for it to rule that China's claim to the most of the sea were invalid. So China is being like a child here. It's like, why you report it to the UN?
Yes, and I see that they also refuse to take part in the UN arbitration.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, China is unfortunately becoming an increasingly powerful country.
And perhaps that's why. That is why. Because they are powerful.
But for Southeast Asian as a regional bloc, being very close to China, as well as having other bigger powers like US and European Union, on the side, I think it is important to see ourselves as a regional bloc, as in like we need to leverage all the powers there is in the global economy, but at the same time we also need to see ourselves, stake our claim on what is right. At the end of the day, I think having United Nations there, it is important because I think if all countries can settle their dispute, peacefully within an internationally recognized body like
and
United
a neutral
Nations,
one,
and a neutral one as well, that would definitely solve a lot of problem and avoid any military conflict.
That's true.
So it's the last piece of today's news. Going back to Malaysia, on today's online about the MH370. So Najib just arrived in Perth as the search and rescue for the MH370 go along. It is reported that 8 military planes will assist in the air search for missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, including one tasked to drop self-locating datum markers buoy within the areas said by the Australian Joint Agency Coordination Centre, JACC. So now it seems like Australia is also taking a very close and keen interest in helping Malaysia.
Yes, because apparently that portion of the Indian Ocean is actually in their charge. They're in charge of search in that area, so that's why we are seeing more of the Australian authorities speaking out on this. Well, I hope the plane will be found soon. And I hope that these data markers will help locate the black box, because as I understand it, there's only days left before the battery runs out. There's 30 days of life to it. So
battery for
the black box.
Black box.
So once the black box battery has gone out, then it won't release the ping that would enable the authorities to locate it.
I see.
So it would make searches a lot more harder.
Okay. Talking about Australia, right? Do you think the search and rescue will be much more efficient now that Australia is on board? Especially, it seems like the missing plane might be in their territory.
Sorry? Pardon?
Do you think that the search and rescue will be much more efficient now that it is in their territory?
Well, I think I do not doubt the efforts that have been put in by Malaysia and all our partner countries, because as we can see, even when we were searching in the Gulf of Thailand, we do get cooperation from many countries, and we had China, Australia, America sending their best resources over to look for it. So I think if any, right now efforts are becoming a lot more urgent in a sense. So because we are running out of time, and obviously the families are demanding answers. So
yeah, I mean, a couple of days ago, people in Beijing will protest very madly and emotionally in front of the Malaysian embassy in Beijing. So this is something that Malaysian government needs to realize, that this is not just a domestic issue. It is a very international issue, and China, being the country, or I'm not sure whether they are a big bully in this, but they seem to be very much pressuring Malaysia to solve the issue here.
yes, I mean, we all sympathize, and there are many Chinese passengers on board. But at the same time, we must not forget. I think one aspect that has been forgotten is the crew and the pilots themselves. Their families have lost a family member as well, and not much focus is there. I think we all have to recognize that we all have lost someone. Even like, for example, me. I mean, I do not know anyone personally on board, but I do feel the loss and the pain. Perhaps I will never understand it to the extent of those who are directly related to it. But we all lost our fathers, brothers, mothers, sisters, children. And what we need to do now is just focus as much as possible on the search and rescue.
Yeah, I feel the same as well, and I think when it comes to the search and rescue, we hope for the best for every country that is involved, and especially for the experts who are directly involved in the search and rescue. I think we believe they have done their best in trying to locate the plane. So that's all for our today's news commentary. And thank you, Melissa, Sasidaran. We will talk again. This time will be much more interesting about our about our constitutional institution.
And separation of powers.
It's not easy. That's not
It's
an
a
easy
mouthful,
word.
yes.
It is a mouthful. So anyway, we will catch up again.